Bene, buonasera a tutti e benvenuti al terzo incontro dei nostri talk, le nostre conversazioni online legate al progetto We Rise by Lifting Others di Marinella Senatore. Questo terzo incontro è molto importante perché abbiamo qui, oltre naturalmente a Marinella Senatore, la nostra ormai padrona di casa, una figura importantissima del mondo dell'arte contemporanea. È un grande onore avere con noi oggi Chus Martinez, una curatrice di origine spagnola che oggi dirige l'Art Institute di Basilea, nonché è la curatrice del TANC, sempre a Basilea, luogo espositivo associato appunto all'Art Institute e dirige anche il progetto Current alla Fondazione Thyssen-Bornemisza di Venezia, e prima di ricoprire queste cariche, insomma, ha lavorato nei più importanti musei d'arte contemporanea nel mondo. Ricordo sicuramente l'esperienza al Museo del Barrio di New York, al MACBA di Barcellona, direttrice della Frankfurt Kunstverein in Germania, e tra le tante mostre che ha curato è stata una delle braccia operativi della 13ª Documenta nel 2012. Ecco, quindi diamo il benvenuto a Chus. La conversazione si terrà in inglese, quindi da adesso parleremo in inglese. Hi Chus, great to see you. Welcome to our conversation, digital conversation, but let's say that we are all in Florence at Palazzo Strozzi. We are in front of the fantastic installation by Marinella Senatore in our courtyard. I know a little bit about your career. It's really a great honor to have you here with us, one of the leading voices of the contemporary art world. The record of your exhibition is really impressive, and you work with so many artists, emerging or established. But you never worked with Marinella. So actually, no. I'm very happy to have you together with me. And I would like to ask you something about Marinella, what you think about her work, about her practices. And I hope that one day we work together. So tell me something about Marinella, Chus.
Well, this is reaching me in a really great point, because I actually considering, and I already proposed Marinella for 2 projects that I think that they are going to happen. So in that sense, it's a fantastic preamble of a near future. I really love her work, and I've been following it for many years. And sometimes, even if you love somebody, you don't coincide for whatever reasons, like paths don't cross. But I've been thinking a lot about her lately, also because the transformation that our public texture is undergoing demands people like her that is able to analyze it under many different layers, structural layers, political and ideological layers, but also she considers something that very few artists consider when they are talking and working about the political, which is also the aesthetic, the fact that you need an experience that people can relate to. So in that sense, I think that she's outstanding, and more and more, I'm a big admirer, and I hope very, very soon that's gonna resolve into something. So yeah, I think that this is reaching us exactly in the point that we all came to the same conclusion. Let's do something together. So
I wish so. Thank you very much.
So perhaps I can start with a question. I think you have been working across many media. Perhaps you could, and for me, as I said, one of the most important aspects of your work is how you have been an analyst of the public. Like, how does it work? How do we actually understand ourselves of part of a public realm? So, which is very difficult, because we see ourselves as having opinions, having ideas, having wishes, having political agency, but then of course in the public is a different thing. It's a next step. And then we have institutions for that, but the institutions we have for that are also not accessible to everyone, of course. And you have been trying to search for different spaces in the public. So it would be nice if you say something about your own research trajectory on that?
Sure. Thank you very much for this. It's the main question, and possibly it's a never-ending source of research for me. And very often I address the street as one of the main social stage for things to happen. When I founded in 2012 the School of Narrative Dance, I started rethinking didactic processes. So reimagining and redrawing what a school could be. So the idea of sharing skills and enhancing possibilities within a community, the possibility of failing, but also the empowering of people that certain established structure within the society considering not useful anymore could reenact their own specificities and know-how and abilities, and also the hierarchies and the role of the teacher. What is the emancipation from the teacher? Very, very easy to understand. What is the didactic process of the sharing of skills and the self-education, the self-cultivation that somebody can simply activate in another person. And then also reflecting on the languages that for me are just possibilities, but differently from when I work just as an activist that I am, because I'm an activist since I was 15 years old. So possibly I started as activist before anything else. I have very clear in mind the artwork at the end of the experience, and the aesthetic experience that you mentioned at the beginning. It's something that I have very clear in mind. I guarantee for that we will have this aesthetic experience at the end. It's something extremely sensitive and important, and it's an agreement that I take with community. And the School of Narrative Dance has as final restitution always an outdoor performance and always an action that is developed through the street, the same street that the very transformative and unimaginable community, not based on race or ethnicity or age or social scale or whatever, but simply united by the fact that they're working on a creative purpose. They are united for, and actually they last for a long time, maybe even longer than other than in other occasions when they are forced to stay together by completely different reason. And this so heterogeneous groups and bounds of people, sometimes thousands of people, by the way, are connected, and they by something completely different than usual, and they walk to the same street. Maybe they sleep because they're homeless in their street, or they walk to the same street going to the job center or to their houses, and they live even in the relation with their neighbors, the same street where they perform, in a completely different way. So the emancipation and the empowering that they reach out during this final restitution, it happens because they are on a different stage, which is not the theatrical stage, is exactly the same street that they belong to them, and they rewrite and redesign on a social and political level in a completely different way, which is meaningful, which is political, because they take the street literally, and they reshape the role in their own way. And who is a failure, who is vulnerable, who is stigmatized, all these things are completely messed up and reshaped. And maybe the most vulnerable are in a completely different position. during the creative process. It's actually 99% of our participants are not people connected with the art system, and a lot of them can be super old, very young, can proceed from groups that usually don't have neither access to certain cultural proposal. And they come freely because they simply respond to an open call. The fact is that the open call is very political because it's aimed to reach out the maximum number of people possible, which means that it's suitable for deaf people, blind people, for people that speak other languages, people that live in stigmatized places, people that sleep in the street. So in this phase, I'm very careful. And if they join or not the project, this is obviously not important. It's important that people feel asked. And it's when my project really starts.
I think it's fundamental what you just said, because we have been witnessing historically in the 20th century and now different phases of what the street means. And what we need is more and more what I call street comprehension. So to understand what is happening and also the traces of what was happening, and how to incorporate the memory of the street and past street movements into future ones. So I think that your practice, like the practice of very few artists, is actually providing that, because if you are 20, it's very difficult for you to understand the streets of May 68 and the streets of Occupy and the streets of Black Lives Matters and the streets of Greta Thunberg movement and the climate change movement and the streets of Extinction Rebellion and so on and so forth. So it's not only about occupying the street, but also more and more providing some sort of dramaturgy of the different moments in occupying it. And I think that's why artists like you are providing with an intelligence, because it's not only about immediate change, but it's really about hermeneutic, like people would understand what are the problems that then find their place in a street protest. And that's really something that it's also a different forum, but it's a very important forum, because in the street people meet that may not meet in any other of our systems, social systems. So
Exactly.
I think that it's really kind of a visionary work, yours, because then, it proposed some sort of choreography, but this choreography keeps and also allows for diversity also in the modus operandi of taking the street. That has been changing it. It belonged to the left, but more and more we are seeing, like now, because of Corona, it's belonging also to the right. The right radicals are also occupying the street. People that are in denial of the norms of the mask and the codes of health and so on and so forth are also occupying. So it's really not only a bad thing; it's also a good thing, because in a way they are acknowledging the street. And for the sake of diversity, we are kind of making the street more and more of a diverse environment. It's not only for the small groups of the left or the anarchists or the activists, but it's also for many other people. So the festival, the activism, the anarchism, the dance, the right radicals are meeting. So, and I think that that's a very healthy thing that
It's
you
healthy.
kind of started to imagine from the beginning. And my question is, how do you imagine the future? I think, imagine that tomorrow we can go on the streets and the pandemic ends. So what's the first street project of yours? September 2021.
Well, actually, there are planned a few projects, and I'm very careful. I think that it's not true that things are just the same. After
But
1 year that bodies lived in a different way, and we see how very dumbly the young people are reacting when they try to go out now sporadically. So I would think a lot, and I would concern a lot about delicacy and caring about bodies. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Taking care. I think that caring should be another verb and another term, included in artistic practice. Personally, especially for somebody like me working with this kind of practice, it would be very incoherent otherwise. And that's exactly what we are doing. So I don't think that a wild parade now or taking the street with all energy possible and aggressive behavior would really develop a sense of freedom, but rethinking the way we stay also in relation with the others, more attentive also in relation with the others. And yes, I think that practice of participation can be extremely useful. Of course, I'm devoted to participation totally, and I didn't stop working at all during the 2020. And the need of reflecting of this is even more interesting. We didn't stop having a body. We didn't stop having a performative necessity, actually. And we worked also with the School of Narrative Dance during pandemic, for instance. So I would reflect a lot about language. I would listen a lot to people instead of fulfillment of very, very small elite of people. And my real big scare is that things will be run as before, especially in the culture.
they cannot be run as before.
And I hope it won't, because it's not gonna work. And the distance of people are so urgent and so loud, and the disconnection from the proposal of culture and what is happening in the street, or what is the wishes of the street, is too strong and too loud.
Yeah.
So we have to work and work carefully. But this idea of caring should be very serious, taken very serious. And that's what I'm doing, basically.
And do you think that is there something like a social media street?
Not sure. Possibly. Not sure.
But it doesn't have the same structure, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were curious. I've been trying to analyze it, and I also came to the same conclusion that it does not work structurally as a street, even if, yeah, it produces groups. And there is also incredible attempts right now. Like yesterday, I was like the whole day trying to understand new social media platform that is very popular now in the States and Germany called Clubhouse, and it's only based on the voice and not on the image. So it's interesting that, you know, us in the street or us in a podcast or us in the radio, that is something that also interests you a lot. The voice was more preeminent as the image, and still I cannot figure out how this constitutes what the street constitutes, because also by walking through your street, it needs to be yours. Like it needs to have traits, moments of stopping in the baker or in the neighbor's door, or, you know, it has stoppers. But still, I'm curious about how the social media and the street
very
would.
curious. It's very curious what you describe. Honestly, I don't know very much about, but I think that the body is still very prominent, and there is no surrogate for that.
Mm-hmm.
The movement and the body, it's still crucial for our experience of the world and the relation with the other humans.
And are you considering elements that you did not consider before? Is that now, in these months, are new elements that come to your mind that before you did not thought of?
Not really, because I just improved more with the sound and poetry.
Mm-hmm.
But I already started a long time ago. I just improved more. Few projects driven more by sound and poetry. And I see that words are really a refuge for people. And all these motto, which are also included in my installation at Palazzo Strozzi, or in general that I'm using in the recent installation, are so important for people. And certain slam poets that I see around the world, and especially proceeding from Black community, I see that are very relieving for people. So it's raising a lot this need of spoken words, slam poetry, etc. But I use it also in the past. I just see that the comfort of the word is needed.
And you think that this is something that all generations feel, or are you, for example, like I'm talking about myself, I'm more and more very concerned about the fact that this pandemic affects especially two groups that I love. One is the elderly, the other one is the children.
Oh, elderly, definitely. I promise you, they need the body. They need to be touched. They need to touch.
Yeah, but children as well, and they are really, really affected by what's happening. And I think that we normally do not consider these two groups very much into our imagination of, let's say, the street occupation, but even the festivalize and the joy of the social. Ones because they are too young, the other ones because they are too old. And
exactly.
in this pandemic, there have been two collectives that they suffer incredibly.
I agree.
I think that it would be really interesting to include their concerns. Like I've been having like children meetings, like because they are completely desperate, and they have been like children have been inviting other children to look at dance that it happens normally in TikTok, but not only to produce some sort of in-house festival that they just go around, and then I was so impressed by how they tried to organize themselves in a way that they could move together, that they synchronized their moving and their dance. And I thought, wow, it's
if I can tell you, parkour, free running, all this discipline that very young people are developing more and more, and not only dance, are extremely important, and they are very connected. For instance, in UK, they're super connected with psychologists and therapists. And for instance, for Biennale of Sao Paulo, I'm working on this. And with Palazzo Strozzi, we worked with very old people, or people in jail, or people in senior nursing residency, very, very old. And believe me, they had a desperate need to move. Usually you don't touch. You touch less and less and less old people in general. But with the pandemic, the isolation of people, for the first time I saw young people able to relate to very old people with the fact to stay in a small place and don't move the body. So the success of even online workshop about dance and mindful movement with Palazzo Strozzi was based on this fact that you are mentioning. And we had very, very young kid, and we have a very, very old people. We always had in the school narrative dance, but of course in presence it's something, online is completely different. And believe me, it was extremely successful because they needed. So it was the only occasion for them, this workshop, 1 hour online, in order to move the body with the nurses. So they were extremely desperate for doing that. So, and this is something that produced a sort of horizontality, because people in their houses, people in the nurses' senior residence, etc., but usually also without the pandemic, these people are in this condition, and you touch less and less old people, and they start moving less and less. We worked with a group of people affected by Alzheimer that didn't recognize their daughters. They were in front of them. And in the movement, mindful movement, not really dance, they reborn, literally. So, and actually the organization of Mondial Health, International Health Organization say about mindful health. This is not something that I say myself. I'm not an expertise of that. I just activate this kind of project, and I can promise that it's incredible the need that people have. So I hope that all these things that were less visible before the pandemic now are so obvious to everybody and won't be lost in the together with other millions of information afterwards, because this will be a great pity, because now it's so obvious that this is for mental and physical health and for cohesion, for social cohesion, and for creating community. Building community means also that. And it's incredible, even online, how very young people related to these very old people, just online, just with in a chat like this one that we are having right now. So imagine what is possible to do in presence, and what this can enrich the young, the old, everybody, and such a different and diverse group you can create. And the idea of...
I have a question which is very egoistic. So I really need that, and I'm completely sensing the need of what you are describing. So can you see yourself as providing guidance, or let's say a set of exercises that you could distribute to certain communities, like the same that we are saying all my students would embrace, myself, so that you could actually distribute those exercises in different communities for us to engage, so that it would not only a workshop in a place, but some sort of let's say a new curricula of street inside art academies, art schools, nurse rooms, hospitals. You know what I mean? Some sort of a protocol.
I don't need a big budget to do that. And with the budget of Palazzo Strozzi, we did. Actually, 2 days ago, we published the first open exercise for everybody, which are published now on the... Arturo can say something about that. After this experience that we did online with these people, the choreographer pedagogist based in Berlin created the 3 tutorials that everybody can do, even people with mental and physical discapacity. And these are published on the web page of Palazzo Strozzi. But of course, can be delivered. But my goal is that the School of Narrative Dance become this, and not a big budget are requested for that. But I have to find just an occasion for an university of an institution that can just provide the minimum budget for me to setting up my professionals, because I need professional people to do that, and set a routine of 10, 20 mindful movement that can help people in this. Surely I can do.
No, I think that's really fundamental, because we all need guidance on how to relate, like it's much more complex to imagine than people think. We need to have an imagination of that needs to come to us, and also the sense that there is a community there able to do it with us, because we are all afraid of being ridiculous, because we are all isolated at home. So we really need the participatory, let's say, boldness that artists like you can
Even
give to us.
once a week, we could make online one session with the parkour, or because it's possible even with the parkour. As I'm doing with people in Brazil, by the way, I'm doing that. It's very easy to build the infrastructure. I have the people, I have the willing. Actually, this was my idea, to open up this research and this outcome. I just need that somebody will like to do that. But I'm very practical person and very realistic. So if we want to do that, I'm very keen too.
No, I think it's very important to provide this sort of instructions with love, that you have the instructions on the one hand, but you also provide people with a community able to dance with, which is what also children found in TikTok, because there's so many people just ready to jump, that this makes them feel that's okay to do it. So
and they see me myself doing, and I'm fat. I'm not a dancer. So, and we do with the people without arms, without legs. So we do with people with very serious mental discapacity. And if we are all together, this is fantastic. Now we don't have still the permission, but we will publish also the workshop that we did with the ladies in prison. And it's amazing what you can do with such groups, no? And the empower that these people can provide to others. So if other groups are connected with these groups all together, so you don't have any shyness or, any nerve. And so you let it go. You do it.
And Marinella, every time that you work with these communities, are you producing some sort of an archive of all the people that you work with? Is there like a incredible family adding, like that they
when
are?
I have the permission, yes.
So
otherwise, when they don't give me the permission, and I do anyway, But if I have the permission, yes, I have archive of everything.
But do you keep contact yourself with those that you work in the past?
Almost forever.
Yeah. So that's a beautiful thing. And that's also...
That's the stress, because I have a blog, private groups, through social network, but private groups. I keep with the people since 2003 so far.
And what are your wishes for the near future? I think if you could now decide on what to do, or a project that you would like to develop, like after these months of stress and also thinking, because we have been all thinking about how is the near future for us. What are your immediate thoughts about it?
Well, I'm plenty of commissions and requests and institution they want to work with me, etc. I just hope it won't become cool and just for a moment, but something structural. So something really understood, something that it's seriously understood and structural, that a very openness to certain practices, and not just because it's a la mode right now. And for me, myself, personally, I would like just more cohesion among big institutions in order to create platforms that can last for longer time. Just
like a protocol, so that you stay in the DNA of several institutions, and then they connect because of you somehow, because you provide let's say, the street dance software.
something like the project you mentioned before. So something that I know I can do. I'm super experienced in, because I'm not in lack of work. I'm plenty of work, even too much sometimes. But I would like to leave something more long term. Yeah, exactly. Just that. But
and how do you imagine this, leaving it behind? Do you imagine it as a archive, or as the production of some sort of a set of instructions, like
contents that can be activated by others, yes, and also implemented by others, but something that can be a common good, or something that can be there, collected or not collected, it's not important, but a protocol that can be activated by me the first time, and then in the year can be used by schools, by university, that the institution can promote in different ways, but something that has a long life. Because I work only on web drawing myself. It's not necessary for me to be always there.
Yeah.
I'm not this kind of artist. I actually work a lot in web drawing myself.
And we have seen in the last decades, hopefully, like we have been lucky that many artists have been in different ways, but let's say they are like familiar to what you are describing, working on questions of gathering, performance have been boosting. So is there artists or collectives that you find super inspiring for your own practice, that you are collaborating, or you wish to collaborate? So is it on a, what is your immediate artistic or non-artistic, just communities that you find, wow, this is a work that I really would like to entangle my work with?
Well, when I was young, I was fascinated by Tim Rollins, for instance. But an artist that really moves me is somebody that didn't do the work I do. It was Felix Gonzalez Torres. So I'm just moved by certain artists. I would love to work with the people that don't do my practice, actually. I would like to be improved by somebody else, not to work just with somebody that is already doing what I do. I don't have models. I have admiration for a lot of people that do things completely different from mine. But I don't have meat. I don't have this kind of things. I find far more interesting what people tell me, my participants tell me. I worked with more than 6 million of people in 23 countries around the world. They were my teachers. They inspired me. I didn't know anything about participatory art. I just knew that I wanted to do this way, something in this way with this structure, but I didn't know very much about it. I just wanted, but they were there for me, and I learned from their needs. And but yeah, I would like to be surprised by other artists. I would like that somebody say, "Oh, okay, I don't see myself really in a choreographer." A lot of people look at me as a choreographer. I'm not a choreographer at all. Dance as a cinema. Okay, I worked in movie field because I attended the National Film School in Rome, but I am also a violinist. It doesn't mean that I have to play in orchestra. I have a multifaceted background, but I don't see myself as somebody obsessed with dance or other things. I really, really hope that, for instance, I would like to improve a lot of the aspect of the environment. I don't know a lot about that. As activist, I worked a lot on white supremacy. I worked a lot with Black Lives Matters, and with activists, with Pussy Riots and other activists. I don't work a lot with activists concerned about environment. So this will be something that new for me, and I would like to learn and maybe to see how my platform can help also this. So yeah, these are the connection I would like to do. Something new that I can be useful for, and a good match, let's say.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. So, on the one hand, we all wish for, let's say, the entanglement of all the forces that go in the same direction. But as you said, also the surprises that could come ahead of us, because to think about the future in the same terms is going to be very problematic. So, we need to even surprise ourselves in the way that we imagine what can be done. So, that's a very important aspect of the future. I think they're making signals that we need to finish or something, but is there any question that you would like to pose or things that you think that we
Don't
should?
know, Arturo, if you have. I'm not.
Yeah.
Actually, I was so happy because this time really I didn't talk at all. This I think is a great sign for. It's very good for people at home, of course, but also, I
But
mean,
like you should have your chance to talk. I think
yeah,
otherwise it could be that.
we have soon, and I hope we can do something all together soon. Maybe that would be a dream. No, I mean it's a good sign because there was a lot to say between you, and I think you are the guest, and it's much more important than you talk than me. Yes, we just have few minutes, so I think we just have to say hello, and but maybe just because choose, we did a lot of questions to Marinella, but we didn't have the chance to to ask you something. So we talk about the future of museums, the future of exhibition of art. Many times with Marinella now. Tell us something about what you think about the future of art institution in this new world, the so-called new norm that is going to be present hopefully very soon.
Well, it's gonna be a challenge in a positive way, and it's gonna be, let's say, when you press the mayonnaise thing, the tube, and imagine that you are the tube. So
Okay.
you really felt really pressed by that hand. So the time we are living in is the hand that is pressing, and at the end, some mayonnaise come out, and you are happy because you can eat your sandwich with it. But it would demand to imagine a complete new connection in between the source and the basis that is expecting it. So I think that in the future it would be fundamental to go back to some of the premises of the 60s, and the 60s in particular and the 70s later on, which was like the inclusion of artists and the actions defined and designed by artists in the what I call the technologies of care, and of course the technologies of education. So it would be really fundamental to think that you need to include in the becoming old, becoming ill, becoming disabled, needing of mental health assistance, art production, because it's meant for it. So we, for centuries, have been really producing an epistemology of experience, and the experience of all what life is bringing to us in that sense demands that knowledge, that epistemology. So it would be really ridiculous to just reduce it to patrimonial concerns of preserving art in collections or exhibiting it as just objects. So we need to expand it, and the expansion has been already, let's say, embodied in art. Art is experience, so that's what they want to get. They really want to unfold it. They want to unfold it to surpass the binary in between culture and nature, the binary of genders, the binary of race, so that you could include in social justice all diversity, all possibilities of backgrounds, but also of experiences. So it is fundamental to have that debate inside the social, and let's be clear, I think it's not only in the Anglo societies that we learn from that. We have an incredible tradition, let's say, of anarchism, and also ways of inclusion or imagining that imagination is not new, but the implementation of those imaginations, it's new, because it has never been implemented, and it has never been implemented in a way that it could be sustainable. So they were thought about a radical gesture, almost as a destruction of the status quo. They were not thought about it as a new establishment of a new reality. And I think that young people demand it, because one of the biggest problems of the pandemic is that when you are now 24 or 25, your ideas about your future, they are really sad, and they are really like totally constrained by what this pandemic is creating. So the choices, the decision-making processes of young people towards life has been radically changed by what's happened right now. So it is our role as practitioners of experience and culture to give them a chance, because those that they are the planners of labor and the planners of productivity and capitalism are not going to give them that chance. So at least we need to be part of that dialogue with the political parties. And it's not happening. It's not happening in Spain, that has been touched by this pandemic, like Italy, at the highest level. But nobody is talking to us. Nobody, but not even us. We are not even talking to ourselves. And I think that this is exactly why I'm so falling in love again and again and deeper with practices like Marinella and many other artists that are bold enough and naive enough, in a good way, in the best, beautiful, generous way, of going to the street, just going where people are, like going where we need to hold hands, where we need to just listen, imagine, not talking, just listen, things like that. So yes, I'm immensely positive, but it's gonna be like, yeah, I think we need to be ready to feel like the mayonnaise tube.
Thank you, Chus. I
Fantastic.
don't have a lot to add about what you said. Very interesting. Much more than a vision, I think, is a kind of statement or manifesto for the future of museum. Let's call it the mayonnaise manifesto. That is
the Mayo Festo.
the Mayo Festo. That would be perfect. And I really agree with you. This is the direction we try to go, working with Marinella in this very difficult situation. And I hope that the institutions will be able to face these issues in the next future. Now it's really too late, and I really have to say thank you, Chus. I hope to
Thank
see
you
you
both
soon
of
in presence.
you for inviting me. It has been an incredible honor.
Thank
And
you.
as I said, any help, any collaboration, any support, I'm
It will be
here.
a great
So,
honor to do something with you soon and to toast with a real drink in our
por
hand in
favor,
presence. Okay.
Por favor.
mandatory.
Grazie
Grazie.
mille. Un bacio a
Grazie.
tutte. Ciao, a presto. Ciao,
Ciao.
ciao, ciao.